Politics. I'm your host, Darlene Price, and tonight we're going to cover a very interesting, to say the least, I don't know if I call it a disturbing administrative hearing. But first, let me say thank you, and I apologize. The last show we did, I forgot to do this, but I want to say thank you to MBR TV, Steve Hall, and the folks on our television station. We want to thank our Facebook viewers and our podcasters over in Louisville and everywhere else, and on YouTube. Also, want to thank to everybody that helps make Truth or Politics happen. There's a lot of people behind the scene. One of them sitting here right now. I want to thank him too. Our tech guy, our tech guru, who does everything for us. Otherwise, you wouldn't have a show because I don't know how to do tech stuff. And we want to thank tonight. We got Dana Bart Gibson with us tonight. Some of my killer bees for Truth or Politics that also witnessed this administration hearing. And we hope you guys continue to follow Truth or Politics. And this happened in Pulaski County, Kentucky. We have viewers all over the country, by the way. I got some friends out in California that I told them about this, and they're watching tonight. Hello, California. And some friends in Alaska, where I'm going to be going hopefully in a couple of weeks. Anyways, so let's get this party started. What happened was we covered, and we call this edition to this show, Sex, Lies, and Call Me Daddy. Okay, so this was a hearing set up by the Kentucky Supreme Court to decide whether or not to remove Mr. J.S. Flynn. His full name was Joseph, I forgot what the S stood for. Joseph S. Flynn, who was the court clerk for Pulaski County. Okay, the judge was a special judge brought in. And I want to say this too. She did an excellent job, I thought. Judge Jean C. Logue. She did an excellent job. She did a good poker face. She followed the law. I thought she was very, very fair to both sides. I just want to say that up front. The Judge Advocate General prosecuted this case. Now, this was not a criminal trial. This was an administrative hearing for Joseph S. Flynn. They called him J.S. throughout the hearing. And his representation was Attorney Joseph Lambert. The grounds for firing, and this was a hearing to decide whether he's going to keep his job as the circuit court clerk for Pulaski County, one of the biggest counties in Kentucky. Okay, the grounds for firing him were the following: that they could fire him on the legal grounds: hostile work environment, harassment, failure to perform duties with courtesy and respect, and conflict of interest. Okay. What we're going to do tonight is we're going to go through witness by witness and try to get done in an hour. If we go over a little, Steve said we could go over. We might go over an hour, but we can go over. Our TV guy said it's okay to go over, so we might actually go over an hour. I say that sometimes, and then we end up going under an hour. It just depends on how quickly we move through this. I want to say this. When we went up there to watch this, all three of us watched it. I didn't know any of these people. Okay, except for one. The only person that testified, and it was for J.S. Flynn, was a young man that I knew, and his testimony, and this is nothing personal to him, but his testimony was kind of moot because he testified for Flynn that he didn't see anything. He really didn't see anything. But he wasn't there during the time frame that this happened. So we're just going to push that aside. And that's nothing personal to that young man. He's a fine young man. I do know him. Everybody else was a stranger to me. So when I went into this, I didn't know any of these people. I didn't know any of these witnesses. I never met J.S. Flynn. If I had met these people, I surely don't remember meeting them. So I went into this pretty objective. I had heard about Scott Lawless. I think I may have met him once at some kind of gathering or something. But that was it. But I didn't know these people. I had no preconceived notions about any of these people. Did you? No. And I think you only knew Flynn, right? A little bit, sort of?
Yes.
And that's it. But so none of us had any... We didn't go into this case thinking, he's a rat or, he's innocent, poor thing. He's just made... We didn't have any preconceived notions about this. So let's just get right into it. One of the first witnesses I'm going to talk about is, we're just going to use first names. Okay, I'm going to try to not use last names with the women because, I quite frankly, I think they've been through enough. to be quite honest. This first girl, her name's Ashley. She was the district judge secretary for Judge Lawless and Judge Hardy. Okay, so these are two judges. This is their secretary. This is some of the things that she said she witnessed. She witnessed him walking by him. She was walking by him and overheard a conversation about a vehicle. I guess they were at a Coke machine or something. And so she just hears something about a vehicle, and she thought maybe they were talking about her vehicle or something. So, she just said, hey, are you talking about this vehicle? Or I forget what kind of vehicle it was. And Flynn jumps on her, in front of people and says, what the F word, what the F are you talking about? Nobody's talking to you. And just a hateful tone of voice. So that's one incident. Then there's a package situation. Okay. Apparently there was a package delivered to one of the judge's office. And I believe it was one of the female judge's office. And it was in like a fire retardant package or something. And they just thought it just looked weird or something. So the judge, had the secretary and them call downstairs and have security come up. And just, let's make sure this package isn't something that's dangerous or something. So they looked at it and the package was fine. Well, later on, J.S. Flynn comes to the clerk's office and says, hey, is this the package that everybody's scared about, all upset about? And, this is the package. Witnesses witnessed him that he took the package, rubbed it in his crotch area, and says, well, that'll give her a reason to fear this package. Okay. Another incident. She also witnessed him rubbing women's shoulders and playing with their hair. She witnessed him grab women by the back and saying, come here, let daddy feel your bacon. Grabbing them in the back. And she witnessed that multiple times. And she witnessed them multiple times telling women, call me daddy. Okay. She also witnessed, she made it clear that she didn't want to be in the clerk's office alone with them. And she also told Judge Lawless that. And we will get into his testimony in a minute. She overheard him several times bragging about sleeping with other women and sleeping with his wife. She witnessed, the blue dress incident. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and describe the blue dress incident. She was one of the witnesses. Okay, what happened was, this secretary, the judge's secretary, I think they were in judge's chambers, correct me if I'm wrong, they're in judge's chambers. And there was a courthouse security there. This is a certified police officer with Pulaski County Sheriff's Department. And we're going to get into his testimony about this too. So you got a cop, a clerk, and the judge's secretary. Mr. Flynn apparently walked in, and in front of these three people, ran his hand right up the clerk's dress. And, to be that comfortable... When you're not comfortable doing something like that in front of people, that's not the first time you've ever done something like that, okay? And I felt that Ashley's testimony about that was very believable. I also felt the cop's testimony, and we'll get to the cop here in a minute. Go ahead.
Can I ask a question?
Sure.
Didn't she say he did not only run his hand up her dress, but he did something with his hand while it was up her dress?
I didn't catch that. I'm
pretty sure he did. She did say that.
She may have, and I didn't catch it. Did you catch that in your notes? I just hand up the blue dress. Okay, so either way, inappropriate office behavior in front of a cop and another secretary. Okay, so there's a vehicle incident, and she also witnessed that Hannah. We're going to get to Hannah's testimony in a minute. Hannah was a driver when there was a vehicle incident. And when people are upset about something, it's important under the law and in testimony that, if they go and tell another person and they're upset, that shows that's kind of like after the fact showing that it happened. You know what I mean? If I kick Dan in the chins and he runs and tells Barb, she kicked me in the chins, like right after it happened, that's an emotional, that more solidifies that this probably happened. So this Ashley, Hannah, and the vehicle incident, and we'll get into the details of the vehicle incident, okay? Because it's substantial. But Hannah apparently, either the same day or the next day, came to Ashley and said she was very upset and said this happened. And Ashley told her, you need to report that. Okay, so she was witnessing immediately after the fact, the behavior and everything of Hannah, who was who was there, was the driver in a vehicle incident, and we're going to get to the vehicle incident in a minute. She also heard Mr. Flynn call Tabitha a social media whore and a badge monkey, and this is all done in the office, folks, in the office, in front of people. Okay, so another incident happened where this Ashley girl, she's a secretary for a judge. She comes downstairs from the judge's chambers as they do, and the court's going on, and I guess Mr. Flynn and some of his clerks are in an office with the door shut, but it's a glass office. So she knocks on the door and points to, her files like, hey, I got to get these files. So he opens the door and says, not now, I'll bring them up to you. So she kind of waits there for a couple of minutes, and it's like, no, the judge sent me, I got to get these files. Court's going on. So she knocks on the door again and kind of pushes it open a little bit. Correct me if I'm wrong, if I'm and he blows up, and he starts yelling at her, get the F out of my office, get out of my effing office. Twice he said that. And then so she turns and walks away, kind of run away, and she's crying or whatever and upset, and he's following her. This is my effing office. Now keep in mind, this is happening during business hours. There's people out there, clerks are out there, and the public is out there, and he's yelling this kind of stuff. Get out of it's my effing office, get out of my effing office, to a judge's secretary who's just trying to get her files. Okay, so that incident happens. She, needless to say, runs upstairs crying and upset and tells Judge Lawless, and we're going to get into his testimony in a minute too, this is what just happened. Okay, so then Judge Lawless comes downstairs and he confronts Flynn. And all this is going on with all these clerks and the public there. Now, I'm going to skip the Flynn Lawless incident that pursued the conversation, because we're going to get to Judge Lawless in a minute, and we'll get his testimony, his version of this. Okay, so then we have a guy, Frankie. Okay, Frankie was a chief deputy clerk hired in 2021 by Flynn. This is what he testified to. He's witnessed disrespect towards clerks. He witnessed a sexual comment or joke by Flynn in front of Hannah. This is the driver of the vehicle incident we're going to talk about, her testimony in a minute. But he witnessed Flynn, the clerk, J.S. Flynn, who's on trial, for lack of a better say, administrative hearing for this. He makes some kind of joke, and folks, we got little kids watching, make them leave the room or something, okay? But it's important to talk about this. When he said he made a joke about, at the end of it, was spit or swallow. Okay, well, that is a very sexual connotation, very inappropriate to say in front of a clerk or to a clerk or in an office of any sort. So that guy witnessed this. This guy also witnessed the office was more functional and more efficient when Flynn was not there. When Flynn was there, everyone was on edge. Okay. Now, I'm going to say his whole name. Junior Thorntonberry. He is a PCSO sheriff deputy. He is court security for a district court. He then testified. I found him, and folks, anybody who's watched this show for a long period of time, we've been on the air for 12 and a half, almost coming up on 13 years. Nobody has held the cops more accountable than me. Just because somebody has a badge and takes the stand does not mean that, everything that comes out of their mouth is true, okay? No one has held cops more accountable than I have and exposed more about cops. I literally wrote the book on it. It's called Bordergate, okay? I was a whistleblower against supervisors of my former federal agency. So, I don't just side with cops just to side with cops, okay? I'm not one of those.
But we have to go with this cop because he was a witness and totally had no reason, no extra ground, no
No.
reason that he should say otherwise.
He was extremely believable. For those of you who are new or watching this show, I was a former federal agent for many years, first with the military, and then I work with many different agencies on multi-agency task forces. I probably worked with every agency there is to known to mankind on these multi-agency task forces for years and years and years, 20 years. And I'm telling you, this guy was incredibly believable. Okay, what he witnessed, first off, he said he witnessed Flynn yelling at clerks quite a few times. And this is in the public eye, screaming and yelling at his clerks. He witnessed Flynn cussing the clerks when customers could hear. He overheard Flynn making sexual jokes and comments. People were disgusted or embarrassed. They asked him, well, what was people's reaction? And he goes, they were disgusted and embarrassed. And he witnessed the blue dress incident. Okay, now, Mr. Thorntonberry was the cop that was present. So you had a cop, the clerk, and the judge's secretary. When Mr. Flynn in judge's chambers, the judge wasn't there, in judge's chambers, I know, I believe Thorntonberry and I believe the secretary and I believe the clerk that this happened. I just don't think they were lying. The incredible amount of arrogance it took to walk into a judge's chambers in front of a cop and run your hand up some girl's dress is just beyond belief. And so that's what he testified to. Okay, now we're going to get into Hannah Gardner. All right, I didn't mean to say her name, Hannah. All right, Hannah to me came off as incredibly credible. I have a lot of more training and experience than the average Joe out there. I've been trained by like 4 or 5 different agencies. I have a degree in criminal justice and criminology. I've got FBI training and interviewing techniques, Treasury, DEA. I was on one DEA money laundering task force after another. I am very skilled at interview techniques. I'm very skilled at body language and how to interview people and watch them. I felt Hannah was incredibly credible. Okay, now here's the story. Hannah's driving. Flynn is in the back seat. Hannah is driving. Another clerk, Tabitha, is in the passenger seat. Hannah and Tabitha are Flynn's subordinates. Let's keep that in mind. These ladies are his subordinates. Okay. Tabitha's story is Flynn reaches through the middle seat. It's like an SUV. It was a Tahoe, right? Reaches through, grabs her. Hannah's driving. This is a moving vehicle. Now imagine yourself trying to drive when this is going on. Okay? He reaches through, grabs this girl, and starts dragging her in the back seat. And she's fighting him, going, stop it, stop, stop, stop. Tabitha's story is when she got back there, he had exposed himself and was trying to take her hand and put it on his penis, okay? Now, even if you disbelieve Tabitha, back up for a minute. This is Hannah's story. And what I found real credible was her body language and everything else while she was testifying. That girl was reliving it. When she was, this is, basically what she said. Maybe not word for word, but what she said was, I was driving and so what happened? She goes, well, he reached up and he grabbed her and he's dragging her in the back and I'm trying to drive and her body language, she was reliving it. She had her hands on the steering wheel.
You could tell she was scared to death he was going to make him wreck.
Yeah, and she's trying to drive, and the girl's yelling, "Stop it, stop it!" And he goes, "Well, what do you?" And the prosecutor goes, "Well, then what do you do?" She goes, "Finally, I yelled, stop!" And the way she said that, this girl was reliving this on the stand. In fact, like when he was dragging her back there, she's going like this, which is exactly what you would do. Somebody's dragging you, you're going like this. That girl I found incredibly credible. Here's the other thing. They asked, well, what did you see? She goes, well, I'm trying to drive and not wreck. And, I'm glancing up in my rearview mirror and I just basically saw him and her. You could just tell they were down in the back seat. She didn't see anything else. Now, here's what makes her even more credible. There was an allegation that she's friends with Tiffany, or not Tiffany, what's her name? Tabitha, Tabitha, and that her and Tabitha just cooked this up. Okay, well, let me tell you something. If she was going to lie under oath and commit a crime to get somebody fired, what she would have said is, oh yeah, I looked in the rearview mirror and I saw his you-know-what hanging out. She didn't say that. What she testified to was reasonable. I really couldn't see. I'm trying to drive, I'm looking in the rearview mirror, and I really couldn't see what was going on back there. Okay, that's reasonable. I found her, maybe it's just me, you tell me, very credible.
She seemed to me to be
scared to death.
doing her very best to make sure that she didn't tell anything that could be misconstrued as a lie.
Right.
Because she was trying to tell the truth in my conception of what she was doing. She was wanting to make a truthful story and not leave anything to doubt.
Right. What about you? Same thing?
Yes.
Well, here's the thing. Let's scratch Tabitha. Let's say the whole dick out thing didn't happen, okay? Here's a head of an office with a bunch of women. He's got two subordinates in the car. One of them's driving. And he reaches up and grabs this girl and tries to drag her in the back seat. Okay. First off...
Isn't that, in the very least, assault?
Yeah, that's an assault, number one. Number two, he has placed himself and two subordinates in danger. Okay, that very well could have caused a car wreck. Okay,
In the general public.
In the general public. What if she had ran over somebody? This is, hello, the level of, just lack of judgment and stupidity it would take for a head of an office to do that is just beyond belief. So, I'm sorry, but I did believe her. I found her testimony very credible and very believable. I think at the very least, he reached up there and grabbed that girl and tried to yank her in the back of the office, or back of the vehicle. And in doing so, endangered the public, endangered himself, and endangered two of his subordinates. And keep in mind, these are subordinates. This is supervisor subordinate. This has been established law for a long time. This ain't okay. Okay? So, she also witnessed Flynn was agitated a lot. He used harsh language in the office, always used the F word a lot. And this is around all these ladies and also the public. The public could hear him. She also witnessed he would rub clerks' shoulders and hair, and they didn't seem to enjoy it. In fact, they said, well, what was their reaction? And she said, well, they would look at me like, well, why is he rubbing me? That look, why is he rubbing on me? And just give them a look. And I found that to be credible, too.
Is that when he was saying, let daddy feel your bacon?
She didn't say that. She just said she witnessed him touching their hair and rubbing their shoulders, okay? So they asked her, did Tabitha ever feel that indicated she had her feelings for him? She said no, and she did not want a relationship with him. And she said, also witnessed that since Flynn was suspended from the office was not as anxious. It was, a much better office since he has been suspended. Okay, so.
I actually wrote down a quote.
Okay, go ahead.
This girl said, "It's as if an elephant is lifted off our chest."
Oh yeah, I forgot about that.
That was a direct quote. She said that.
Is there an
I
elephant?
have a question.
Go ahead.
He has been, and I realize there are a lot of issues that need to be protected for legal reasons, but he has been on administrative leave now with Sally for a year and a half.
We're going to get to that at the end.
Okay.
We're going to hit that, okay? Our opinions about that. Okay, well, let's get through the testimony first. Casey Casada, but that's a good point. Don't let me forget it, okay? Casey Casada, okay. This is a circuit clerk's office, deputy clerk full-time. This is what she witnessed. This is another clerk. And I found her to be very credible, too. She said that she witnessed Flynn's attitude angry often. He often had outbursts. He would yell and scream and cuss his staff in front of customers. Okay. He only came out to the office. He only came to the office a few times a week on average, so a lot of times he wasn't even there. She said that Tabitha, now this is the primary victim, and we're going to get into Tabitha's story and the whole story in a minute, but Tabitha, she said she did let him know she wasn't interested in a relationship and tried to get away from him, and he would get angry. She also witnessed the Ashley Hunt incident where Ashley came down. This is this judge's clerk who came downstairs and said, "Hey, I need my files." And he got irate and said, "This is my effing office. Get the F away from here," or whatever he said. Get this. She was on. I thought this was fascinating. She was on the phone with an attorney, and this was so loud when he's yelling at her. She had to put that attorney on hold. She goes, I didn't want them to hear the noise that was going over the phone. She goes, it was very upsetting. That's how loud this was. Him saying, get the F out of my office. This is my effing office, to the judge's secretary, who's just trying to retrieve her files. She also witnessed that Judge Lawless came downstairs and said, "You're not going to cuss my employees that way." And she also witnessed that Ashley was extremely upset. And we'll get to Judge Lawless's testimony here in a minute. She also witnessed Flynn yelling and using the F word right up front with the public. Okay. And so she said one of the reasons she didn't file a complaint was because she was concerned he would make life difficult. They asked her, why didn't people file a complaint? Why didn't you file a complaint? She says, well, he can make life difficult for you. So she said it was a lot easier since he's been suspended, and her quote was, "No more drama."
I wrote that down too.
Yeah, no more drama.
Well, can I ask a question?
Go ahead.
Did he have the power to just terminate them if he wished?
Yeah, he did.
Now, these young ladies were being treated this way, and he'd already made, the way I understand it, she said that he had made, if they didn't do what he said, that he had made the threat that he would punish them or terminate them.
Well, we're going to get to that.
Well, these
That's an
poor
email.
ladies in there, which way did they have to turn?
Right.
When he was touching them, and if they have responsibilities or bills to pay at home, isn't
and that's
a bad
why this-
position to put someone in?
Exactly, and that's why it's so wrong, and it's just it's bad. And we're going to get into a supervisor here in a minute who was a major enabler, and why, in my humble opinion, why these ladies also felt they couldn't file a report. Okay. Their job was at stake. They didn't know if anybody would do anything. So here's another incident too. I thought this was pretty fascinating. This girl's on the phone helping an elderly gentleman, trying to walk him through the driver's license website. I guess at one point they did driver's license. She was part of the driver's license thing, and then she was moved, and then was doing a different job. But what she explained is, look, when people call a clerk's office, and I know how the county attorney's office the same way, and Othel's office, the clerk's office is over there. Those girls will tell you the same thing. A lot of times you get calls, and it's not your job. But, you're dealing with the public, so what they do is they try to be, cordial and help the public. Hey, our office doesn't do this, but let me take you, here's a website, blah, 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 and this is where to go, and this is what to do. So, that's called just being a good public servant. So, that's what she was doing with this elderly gentleman, but he couldn't navigate the website. So, she said, it wasn't going to take that long for me to just walk this poor old guy through the website. And she was trying to do that. Flynn walks up to her, and there was witnesses to this, and starts screaming at her. That's not your effing job. And then so she's, yelling at her. So she kind of puts her, hand up. Here's another reason, too, why I think she was so credible. When she's testifying about this, she's reliving it, just like Hannah did. She's going like this, which is, when somebody's in your face yelling at you, that's what you do. And so her body language, like she was reliving it. And she's put her finger up like wait a minute.
Very descriptive.
Very descriptive. And, and then, and he just kept on, and then he said, boy, and this is referring to this old man. He said, well, if he's that stupid, he doesn't need to have a driver's license.
Now, can I ask a question?
Go ahead.
You mean every bit of this and more was testified to and witnessed and everything, and given as testimony during this hearing?
Oh, there's a bunch more. We ain't done yet.
It went on all 2.5 days?
No.
Wow.
Okay, so.
That incident, just for reference,
Yeah.
that incident with the man on the phone was right at the time when the state of Kentucky took driver's licensing responsibilities away from the circuit clerk's
Right.
office and put it into a totally separate DMV or whatever you want to call it. And this was just a few days after that had transpired.
Right.
This woman was the
Hit
one
like the
in
head.
charge of the driver's license thing, and she just happened to get this man's thing, and she said it was like a 2 or 3 minute conversation to try to help him
Point
go
him
to
in
where
the- point
he
him in the
needed to
right
be,
direction.
which is like if he had called yesterday, she would have been the person to help him get his driver's license,
Right.
and now she wasn't. So it was not, it wasn't, it was
You know,
just
it's not a stretch. You know,
Yeah.
that she was trying to do a good job, okay? And I disagree. That is her job, okay? I just, you know, we get phone calls here all the time in our law office that has nothing to do with Austin's private law office. But you know what? I don't just say, that ain't my job, and hang up. You know, no, Austin would kick my butt, rightfully so. You know, no, you just like, oh no, we don't do this anymore, but here's the attorney who does, and here's his number, and that's called just public service. And for him to just jump all over her in front of everybody and make that comment about the public, you know, he's so stupid, you know, what a dumb thing to do. So, anyway, okay, so that covers her. So now, then a clerk's supervisor testified. And I want to get into this because this supervisor, I just found it, this really took me aback that this was a supervisor. She said she supervised over 20 people up there. She was hired by Flynn. And this is somebody who, by the way, wanted him to stay. She was for him to come back. No, she wanted him back, okay? So when I go through this, what she testified to, this is somebody who wanted him back, all right? She had said, yeah, I witnessed Flynn yelling at Casey Cassada. That was the phone incident. She witnessed that. Yeah, it happened. So you got 2 people, you know, that happened. She said, you know, how many times did he come the week? She goes, well, I only saw Flynn work a full week some weeks. and this is somebody who's for him, who wants him back. She witnessed him stroking people's hair. She witnessed him pinching them on the back. She said, yeah, he pinched my back as a joke too. And he said, you know, is this daddy's bacon? You know, and she thought that was okay. And I just found that disturbing. He made sexual comments at work, sometimes about having sex with his wife in front of the clerks, okay? She witnessed Flynn yell at Ashley Hayes, get the F out, the whole incident about the, you know, Ashley coming down from the judge's office and, hey, I just need my files, and he jumps on her, get the F out of my office, and raised his hand for her to get out, okay? She witnessed that. She witnessed Judge Lawless right after that happened coming downstairs and saying, you know, you're not going to talk to my clerks that way. You need to resign. I'm calling Frankfurt on you, okay? She also witnessed Flynn's derogatory comments about women, not just women in the office, but I'm talking about customers saying, ooh, that one's got a nice body. And she witnessed him frequently addressing women as hoes, okay? This is somebody who says, at the end of the day, I think in fact, her quote was, I want him back, hoped he had learned his lesson, hope he has changed. Okay. Now.
That one was testifying for him?
For him. Wanted him back. Called by the prosecution, but she said, you know, I think he's learned his lesson. Would you want him back? Yeah, I want him back. Okay.
He deserves a second chance.
Deserves a second chance. Okay. This is the supervisor. Okay. Everybody wonders why women are in a position like that. They fear for their jobs. When you have another female supervisor condoning this behavior, then, you know, what are you going to do? You got him and a supervisor, a female, giving, you know, you said it best, an enabling atmosphere.
They're enabling this situation
suck it
to
up.
develop, yes.
There's nothing wrong with this. And that supervisor, I'm sorry, but in my humble opinion, you need to go too. You need to pack your crap and you need to go right with Flynn because you condone this behavior. It was your job, you more than anybody, when you started witnessing this behavior, to turn him in. You should have been, this is why it got so far. You know, I kept thinking, how did this happen? How did this get so bad? how did this get so bad? It didn't happen overnight. Well, guess what? She's one of the enablers who allowed this. She should have been the one to dime him out and file reports on him, and she did not. Go ahead.
Can I ask a question?
Go ahead.
Now, she says he's learned his lesson. Did he learn it by being put on administrative leave for a year with pay, year and a half with pay? In other words, a year and a half vacation? Is that how he learned his lesson?
No, and we're going to get to that. I know you're upset about the year and a half of pay. We're going to cover that, I promise you.
Funds are important. The
It
people
is.
pay for this.
His salary is $113.
So a year and a half would be
$113,000 a
be
year.
$160,000 for him. But also, what about what they have to pay the clerk that replaced him? They came
Yeah.
here out of another county. What do we have to pay for that? We're talking $200,000 or $300,000 worth of taxpayers' money here.
Right, I agree. And we're going to touch on that again. Okay, next one. We'll just call her Raynette. You know, I found her very credible too. You know, when you have an outburst named after you, you know, here's your sign. Here's your sign. You got a problem, okay? You got a control problem. This is what she testified to. She was in the circuit clerk's office for 11 years as a deputy clerk full-time. She said she witnessed his temper, and she witnessed him yell and cuss. And, oh, by the way, this is another one that said she wants him back. So this is somebody who's kind of on the side, and at the end of the day,
This girl's testifying for him?
I want him. This is what she says. I want him to come back.
And she says that?
He may need some anger management. Okay, that's at the end.
She was called by the Attorney General's office.
Right,
wow.
but
Yeah.
she said I want him back. Okay, so
You couldn't write this in Hollywood.
she witnessed his temper. She said she called it a Flynn fit. Well, he would have his Flynn fits. Again, when you have a fit named after you, you got a control problem. She said one time she witnessed him, and again, this is somebody who said she wants him back. She said he hit the copy machine in one of these fits with his hand. Violently hit the copy machine with his hand. Okay. More frequent outbursts over time. So in other words, the more he got comfortable there and kept getting away with stuff, the worse his outbursts got, and you could tell the worse the sexual connotations started. He got more and more comfortable over time. Okay. It was fairly common for him to yell at employees. This is all what she's testifying to. Not always treated them with respect. He was only in the office about 3 times in a week. He was gone more than he was there. Okay, this is somebody who wants him back. Maybe that's why she wants him back. He's gone more than he's there. She said the mood was much better when he wasn't there. And she said, you knew you weren't going to be embarrassed that day. That's disturbing.
That's the one that wanted him back?
At the end, she said, you knew, and I made sure that I got that right. She said, when he wasn't there, well, you knew you weren't going to be embarrassed that day. You know, that's disturbing. That is disturbing, okay? She witnessed comments of sexual nature about customers, their physical appearance, just like the other girls did, okay? She witnessed him say at one point he would like to F her. This is a woman at the counter. I want to F her. To a woman at the counter. This is a public office. He's in the public talking to one of his subordinates and saying, I'd like to F her. And she witnessed that more than once, is what she said. She witnessed him touching women inappropriately. She witnessed the back bacon thing. Is this my daddy's bacon? You know, coming up on women's back. I want to show you. Turn around.
Now, do I remember you saying that
He was
told
coming-
him to call him daddy?
Yeah, he came up, he would come up behind them like this, and this is the testimony, and grab him in the back and say, is this daddy's bacon? I mean, they do.
Now, if a man did my wife that way,
I'm just wondering
I'd
why
want to take-
he
Don't
has
think
not
he-
gotten his face punched in by one of these ladies' husbands.
Well,
That just amazes me that
But
he
he's
hasn't
gotten
gotten
away
an ass whooping, okay,
yeah,
yet. Okay, so,
maybe they didn't know about it. Maybe the husbands weren't told.
well, I don't know. Okay, so back bacon. She witnessed him touching Tabitha in the office. Okay, that's the primary victim. We're going to get to her in a minute. And her upper thigh. So he's in the office, out in the, you know, in the open, customers there, with a subordinate, and putting his hand on her thigh. Okay, she heard him call Tabitha a bitch and a whore. This is somebody who wants him back. She also witnessed the incident with Ashley. This is where Ashley, the judge secretary, came down to get her files, and knocked on the door, and he said, "I'll get him later." And she says, "No, I gotta have him. You're holding up the court system, right? Judge wants him now." And then he went off on her and said, "Get the F out of my office." He was following her away. This is what she testified. He was following her away. As she walked away, she went out crying. This is what she also, so this is like 3 or 4 or 5 people witnessed this. And then that she witnessed that the judge came down, and the judge was yelling at Flynn, and they were yelling at each other. The whole office was, this was her quote, the whole office was on edge the rest of the day. Okay? After that incident with Ashley and the judge, she said that Flynn told her that he admitted that he messed up. And she quoted, messed up, on the Ashley incident, okay? She also said at the end of her testimony, they always ask every one of the girls, "Well, do you want him back?" And she said, "Yeah, I want him to come back. He may need some anger management, but I want him to come back." You can't make this crap up. She said that. She wanted him to come back.
And she was one of the ones that all these are testifying for him?
No, these people, you can call, and this isn't a criminal trial. So in an administrative hearing, I can call the other side's witnesses too. I can call them first. I can call Flynn. I can call anybody I want in an administrative hearing. And in fact, the prosecutor, I'm just using the word prosecutor for lack of a better term, from the JAG office, is the one calling these people, okay? Okay, so, and they're the ones that called Flynn and put him on the stand the first time. Okay, so.
Yeah, they are. They did.
Yeah, they did. So, which in a criminal trial you can't do.
Can I ask a question?
Yeah, go ahead.
Did y'all get a number as to how many actual people testified?
Yeah, we're going to cover that at the end.
Oh, okay, I'm sorry.
Okay. Okay, Judge Scott Lawless, district judge. I just want to say this. Let's go over this incident, and I want to come back to there was a big deal about the defense. Flynn's attorneys made a big deal about it. Made it kind of look like these girls just got together and cooked this up because they all submitted the reports on or about the same day or the next day. Well, no kidding. Well, the reason they submitted those reports is because finally the appearance was, oh good, somebody's got our back. A judge came downstairs and got in Flynn's face. You're not going to treat people like this. Fine, I'm sure those girls thought, finally, look, this big tall guy, he's got our back. We can submit our reports now. Somebody's got our back. That's not a coincidence that and it's very reasonable to understand why they submitted their reports that day. Look, we got a judge. And Ashley, I'm submitting, he ain't going to treat me that way. I'm submitting a report. I don't work for him. I work for Judge Lawless. And so we got back to Judge Lawless, and he testifies to that. There have been other incidents, and he said, hey, tell everybody, you get me the reports, and I'll get them the AOC, which is what his job is to do. If you're a judge in a court setting, and you find out about this stuff, it is your job to let people bring these reports to you and report them to AOC. Had he not done that, he should be fired. So I thought that's I just wanted to hit on it. This is what he testified to, okay? He had been hearing complaints from folks about this guy, okay? He actually witnessed him pinch Ashley Hayes. She said she was offended, and she jerked away, and he was disgusted, and she was disgusted. So he actually witnessed that one time, Flynn pinching her. Ashley again is his secretary.
Now this is a district judge we're talking about.
District judge. Ashley told him that it was hard to work with Flynn, and she didn't want him in our suite, their suite upstairs. She didn't want him up there. Gee, I wonder why. She didn't want to be alone with them. This is all what the judge testified to. By the way, he came off to me, and again, I don't know him. He came off very credible, I thought. What do you think?
Yeah.
Credible, very credible, okay? He observed statements online for Flynn that Tabitha, calling Tabitha a whore, okay? Now, this was before the court order thing, and we're going to get at that in a minute. the Ashley incident, she told Lawless, I thought he was going, okay, when Ashley went upstairs and was crying and telling him what he just did, get out of my effing office, she told him, and he testified to that, I thought he was going to hit me. And so, he did what any good red-blooded American boss would do. He went downstairs in front of him, okay? So he goes downstairs, and he goes to the window and says, yeah, get the clerk, get him out here, I want to talk to him. And he admitted, I got in his face. Do not talk to my staff like that. And Flynn responded to the judge. This is the judge's testimony, and I believe him. Because if you saw Flynn testify, and we're going to get to that in a minute. Flynn responded to this judge, I'll talk to whomever I want, however I want. So he got, and they're yelling back and forth. And this is in the public eye in front of all these clerks, okay? So the judge said back to him, why don't you resign? Okay, so then he also talked about, he testified that he saw Flynn's Facebook page because somebody had told him about it. And it says THOT. Now, this is something I learned about Facebook, okay? THOT, for all you Facebook people, all those acronyms, that means that whore over there. He said he saw that, okay? And then after Ashley's incident, a stream of people, then, of course, he goes downstairs, he confronts Flynn, you're not going to act like this, blah, 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 blah. Then, needless to say, a stream of people, and he testified that this was a stream of people, then wanted to file reports against Flynn. Well, no crap, no kidding. They got somebody else got their back now. That should not be a surprise to anyone. Why then these people finally felt somebody in power and authority, more powerful and more authority than Flynn, was going to have their back. And he was going to turn these reports in. Well, no kidding, these girls filed the reports then. Okay. So, then, after that, they called Joseph Flynn. This is the clerk who's on trial for, it's not a trial, administrative hearing for this stuff. Okay. First off, he denied ever cussing the clerks. He denied everything. Everybody's lying but him. He denied ever saying, call me daddy. He denied touching their ladies back in their hair, even though there was at least 5 witnesses to improper touching. And he went through it. He went through the witnesses. So-and-so, she's lying. She's lying. So-and-so, she's lying. She's lying. The judge is lying. Everybody's lying but him. But he did admit to having sex with Tabitha twice.
So she wasn't lying about that.
Mm-mm. So, and Ashley, the judge's secretary, he did admit that he said they're all lying but him, but then he turned around and he admitted that he did cuss her and understood why Judge Lawless was mad.
So he didn't even lie there.
He admitted that.
And yet he says they all lied.
Right. But he did admit that. And they asked him, do you think that was appropriate behavior for a clerk, if your statue or whatever? And he said no. And he said, I'm willing to apologize for that. That's about pretty much the only thing he admitted to. Everybody else is lying but him. Okay, so then this happened. And he admitted to this. In fact, I about fell out of my chair how he reacted to it. Okay. So before this hearing, a couple months before this hearing, the highest court in Kentucky, the Kentucky Supreme Court, knew that this hearing was going to happen. They're the ones going to make this final decision. The judge is going to make a recommendation, and the Supreme Court is watching this hearing. As we're sitting here watching this, it's being piped in to the Kentucky Supreme Court. Okay?
At the same time.
Same time. Now, before this hearing, the Kentucky Supreme Court issues an order to every witness, everybody involved. You will not post things on social media. You will not talk about this. You will, just like a criminal trial, you will not, because it can be construed as witness tampering or anything else. Folks, this wasn't a suggestion. It wasn't a recommendation. This was a court order from the highest court in the state of Kentucky. You will not post anything on social media about this case.
And
yet, what does Flynn do? He makes a post, shortly before this administrative hearing that basically says, I'm going to have my day in court, I'll be vindicated, blah, blah, blah. But the biggest thing is he posts this song, and the poster from it says, from a Johnny Cash song saying, God will strike you down. Now, Only a moron would think that that's not intimidation, okay? Nobody in their right mind would see a post like that and not think that this would intimidate these girls.
He should also, him as a clerk of the courts, should know what an order means.
Yeah.
And should know that he should not have done that, and yet he
defied
somehow
an order.
He just defied it.
Defied it. In fact, the prosecutor, for lack of better words, from the JAG office walked him through this. Said, "So do you see this Facebook post?" And and yeah, is this your Facebook post? And I really expected him to say no. He goes, "Yeah," just like, so what? I mean, Mr. Flynn, your demeanor during your testimony did not help you. Okay, that was, yeah, yes, and so and by the way, this lawyer for the JAG office who was questioning him was so monotone and soft-spoken. This was not like, a lot of attorneys, when they're going after somebody, they're really hardball questions and they're going at him.
I think they were very nice.
We could
Well,
barely hear him.
you could-
He was so
thank you.
soft-spoken.
He was so soft-spoken, the judge had to tell him 2 or 3 times, they can't hear you, meaning the Supreme Court can't hear you. And I can't hear him. I'm like, can you hear him? That's how soft-spoken and meek, this lawyer was questioning Mr. Flynn.
May I add just something?
Yeah.
I realize all this sounds so outrageous that you may question somehow, but the video of this complete administrative hearing can be viewed by getting in touch with the Secretary of the Supreme Court. She has a copy of it, and
Well, we're going to get it, and we're going to show
we will
it.
show it and
We're
get
going to post it.
But we just want you to know that in spite of how outrageous it sounds, it's what happened.
This is what happened. And his mannerisms and demeanor back to this lawyer during this line of a question. I mean, he just kind of, he showed his Flynn fit almost. He showed it, to a meek attorney asking a question that you could barely hear. He's just like, the attorney asked him, don't you think see how someone could see that was intimidating? No. I didn't mean it. I meant the prayer. There's a prayer in it, that's what I meant. But I want to read this. I want to read the words of this song because I had never heard this song before, okay? This is what it says. You can run for a long time. You can run for a long time. Sooner or later, God will cut you down. Oh, that's not intimidating. God will cut you down. Go tell that long-tongued liar. Go tell that midnight rider, the rambler, the gambler, the backbiter. Tell him God's going to cut him down. Well, my goodness gracious, let me tell you the news. My head's been wet with midnight dew. I've been down on bended knee talking. And that's what he said. Well, I meant this part right here. Well, I've been down on bended knee talking to the man from Galilee. I was praying about it. Right. He spoke to me in a voice so sweet, I thought I heard a shuffle of angels' feet. He called my name, and my heart stood still when he said, John, go do my will. Go tell that long-time liar. Go tell that midnight rider. Tell the rambler, gambler, backbiter. Tell him God's going to cut him down. Now, if that ain't intimidating, I just don't know what is. Okay, so, if you don't believe anything else that he's done, it is a fact. It is an indisputable fact that this young man defied an order from the highest court in the land and put this on Facebook, and there's no way that this would not be confused as intimidating these witnesses. If that's all he did, he's got to go. That's a fireable offense. Gone.
That don't start what he did.
No. Okay, so now, let's talk about Tabitha. Okay, Tabitha was one of the first witnesses. I missed the first little bit of her testimony, but since she went back, they went back through it and back through it and back through it again. Okay, now, before I go into Tabitha, the primary victim of this, I just want to say this. If you take Tabitha out of this equation, and what I'm about to tell you she testified to, the guy's still fired. There's just too many witnesses the things that he admitted to. Yeah, he admitted to walking up to women and stroking their hair and rubbing her back. In fact, the prosecutor asked him, didn't you think that these women might not like this or something? I mean, what was this woman's reaction? And his answer back was, well, they didn't throw a fit about it. you know, just real, like, so what? Okay, what he has admitted to, they have to fire him. What he admitted to himself, they have to fire him. He admitted to cussing. He admitted to the whole incident with Lawless. He admitted to, you know, this posting this thing. He's gone. So, even if you don't believe Tabitha, okay, he's got to go. Now, let's talk about Tabitha. Tabitha is this pretty young girl, single parent, trying to raise 2 kids. Basically, he started on her, like, you know, trying to get dates with her, and of course, there's testimony for him that says that she pursued him, okay? He did have witnesses that say that she pursued him. So, let's say that's a wash, okay? But I'm going to tell you what her testimony was anyway. And I found her to be credible. I did. I found her to be believable. You know, here's why. At one point, you know, she said, you know, he just wore me down. He wore me down. And at one point, he got her to come over his house. And, you know, and then she said, she goes, yeah, and we ended up having sex. And so the prosecutor asked, was it consensual? Did you fight back? And she said, no. She said, you know, I have 2 little kids. I needed my job. He wore me down, you know, and it was consensual. Let me tell you why I find that credible. If she really wanted to do him in, she could have done that, went immediately to the cops, filed a rape charge, had a rape kit done, and his little butt would have been a whole world of trouble, okay? She didn't do that. She didn't. She said, no, it was consensual. I needed my job, though, you know. That's disturbing. Now, again, there's other testimony for him. These other girls testified that she pursued him. It was all consensual and everything else, okay? And it was just as much her fault pursuing him. However, that incident in the car, Hannah was believable. Even if Tabitha's testimony about the incident in the car was he jerked her in the back seat, had his thing out, and was trying to force her hand on his penis.
And if I remember correctly, he had exposed her breast, pulled her dress up and exposed her breast.
Right. Now, even if you don't believe Hannah, or don't believe Tabitha, what Hannah saw, and I believe her, I think that was credible testimony, he's got to go.
Accept that testimony.
You know, because he endangered 3 people. He grabbed that girl and at least pulled her in the back seat. And he endangered not just them 3, because she's driving while he's doing this. I mean, he could have caused her to run over somebody. I mean, it's just stupid, stupid, stupid. Now, your favorite topic. Let's get into that. Money. Okay, so he's been on administrative leave for over a year now, right? And how much, Barb?
Year and a half
Over 113 something.
per year.
Right. Plus, they had to hire somebody to come in and take his place.
So a year and a half, that's about $170,000.
Okay, so,
So if the other's being paid the same, that's $340,000.
okay, here's just my humble opinion, based on the testimony, and based on what he himself admitted to. If you don't believe any of the rest of this, if you believe just what he admitted to, the Supreme Court has to fire him. If you believe, like I do, some of these other girls' testimony that this happened, if you believe a judge that this happened, he's got to go.
Can I ask a question?
And not only does the Supreme Court have to fire him, just a minute,
Okay.
they need to make him pay back this year. He's got to pay that money back. They need to take that from him, in my opinion. Now, if the Supreme Court reinstates him, here's what the Kentucky Supreme Court is doing. The message they are sending to every female in every office all across this land is this. They're sending a message that, suck it up. All the EEO laws and everything you work for, you know, and all the laws, EEO laws and everything else that have been passed over the past 30 years, forget it. Suck it up. Your boss is allowed to put his hands on you. Your boss is allowed to cuss at you, okay? Your boss is allowed to do this.
That can't be right.
If he's
Okay,
male.
that's the message that the Supreme Court, in my opinion, is going to send out throughout the state of Kentucky
If they don't fire him.
if they don't fire him. You're telling all of these ladies, suck it up, baby, because your daddy's going to be calling and let him fill your bacon. I mean, you might as well say that to these girls.
But isn't it, at the very least, when he grabs her and drags her from the back seat, isn't that assault of some kind?
I'm going to get into that.
Okay. Isn't that a crime?
Here's what I think, too. I think that, at the very least, too, the Supreme Court needs to send this to a grand jury. This needs to be a criminal grand jury investigation. Now, they may find out that it's he said, she said enough that they can't do charges. Okay, it comes down to the believability of Hannah on that. It really does. Which I found her very credible. But this other stuff that he admitted to, that he's touching these women, and women who wanted to keep him said, he came up and grabbed me and said, you know, he wants to feel my bacon. That's an assault.
Wouldn't that, yeah. And wouldn't that make her testimony more credible that he did that to her?
Yes.
Those two girls saying the same thing, wouldn't that make it more credible?
Yes.
Knowing that he's doing it to other women too?
This is what, my hope is that two things will happen. Number one, the Supreme Court, he's got to go. If you don't fire him, we can't fire anybody. You know,
And if they do fire him for these
things,
charges,
he needs to pay this back.
then that shows that they agree that he's guilty of doing these things. And if he's guilty of doing these things, this assault and everything, how can they not say that?
Well,
he's
that's
due
what
for
I'm
a
hoping.
criminal-
I'm hoping that
due
the
for a
Supreme
criminal
Court
grand
of
jury?
Kentucky absolutely can turn this over to a grand jury. They absolutely can. They can recommend this go in front of a grand jury. Here's what I think needs to happen. I think you need to bring outside law enforcement, way outside law enforcement. Nothing to do with anything in Pulaski County. And please do not bring in the KSP investigator who investigated the missing money. What was his name? Oh my God. Don't bring him in because, you know, these girls got no hope, okay? That guy doesn't need to be investigating anything ever again. But they need to bring in some trained investigators from an outside agency, and this needs to go in front of a grand jury. That's what I think needs to happen. And let the chips fall where they may. These girls deserve for this to be looked at for criminal charges, at least.
If
at the
it's
very least.
not, it tells them it's okay to do this from now on.
I don't. And the supervisor who witnessed a lot of this and allowed this to happen, you know, somebody needs to, AOC needs to look at getting rid of her. And I know this sounds mean, but you were a supervisor. What you testified that you witnessed to,
Yes.
and you did not, this didn't happen overnight. This was graduated. You could tell by the time frames and stuff. He started out testing the waters. Got a little bit more bold over
And by
time.
her not taking issue with it, she enabled
She enabled
this to
him.
develop.
She sent a message to every girl in that office, suck it up. I'm a supervisor. She said she supervised 20 people. There needs to be, AOC needs to do a hearing into her. Because she needs to go too. Because, she should have been protecting those girls as a supervisor. She should have been, maybe it would have never gotten to that point of him dragging somebody in the back seat and putting a hand up the dress. Had she done her job and grow a pair, for lack of a better term, and filed a complaint and done her job against him. So I think AOC's got to do something with her too. So, did I miss anything? What did I miss, Barb?
I don't think you've missed anything. It's just even the ladies who were saying yes, I would think he should come back, were still making comments like, "Oh, he's learned his lesson. He should have a second chance." And all
You've
this.
got
But
anger
in my,
management and
he should have anger management, which tells me that the whole operation of this office has been broken
For a long time.
and I think it's kind of a Humpty Dumpty thing. You can't just pick up those pieces and put
Put
the
it back
same
together again.
situation back in there and expect it to work.
No, you cannot. You just can't. That and I like how you did it. Humpty Dumpty's fell off the wall, and it's in a bazillion pieces. So, Dan, last words. We almost got it under an hour. We're at 7:04.
Like I say, you would think this is the writing of a Hollywood movie. You couldn't get any more outrageous than this, I don't think.
I missed the first little bit of this, and Dan called me at the break and said, "You got to get up here. You got to get up here." And he starts telling me what's being testified to, and I'm like, "What?" And I'm like, so I jumped in my car, dropped everything I was doing, and went up, and I'm glad I did.
The only reason that we were there is because we were concerned that this had gone on for a year and a half, and the public hadn't been informed to the full issue, and they just knew that he had been put on leave, paid leave.
Paid leave for a year and a
He'd been
half.
on leave for a year and a half. So we were concerned, and we were wondering if it's going to come to him, or is he going to be able to finish his term out on paid leave? We just thought the public needed to be informed as to
What's going on?
what was happening with their tax dollars.
Well,
That's the only reason we went.
I thought that the judge, the AOC, and the Supreme Court made the right call that this should be an open hearing and not do this behind closed doors. Okay, and that was a great call. And I thought that Judge Logue, Logue, if I'm mispronouncing that, I humbly apologize. I thought she did a great job. She was very fair.
I realize that there are a lot of legal issues now. I didn't know it then, but I know now there are a lot of legal issues that are going to be raised by this
Hearing.
administrative hearing. Could be criminal actions, could be of civil litigations, could be. I mean, there are going to be a lot of issues raised by this, and I don't know what the proper thing was to do, but I do know that I don't think that the public's money was being looked after by giving him a year and a half's paid leave and then finding this out about it.
Yeah. Well, again,
And they knew this about him.
Supreme
since-
Court's got to fire him. They
since
got to
the
fire him. They have to. And he's got to pay that money back. And then they need to send this. There needs to be a criminal investigation into this. Okay, there's just too many incidents of touching, feeling, grabbing, and witnessed by cops and secretaries and judges, and
2.5 days of this witnesses of different women being touched.
And you know what? They're all
abused.
lying, but him. No, I'm sorry. I just really found these witnesses credible. I just did. Even the witnesses that wanted them back were credible because they witnessed.
They were telling the same story.
They're essentially telling the same story.
Pretty much. And it's like, you can't be any more credible than that. Nobody want him back. Okay, folks, we're over 7 minutes. Let us know what you think. We will keep covering this. The minute the Supreme Court makes a decision, anything that comes out about this, we will keep covering this. And we're going to try, I said this every show for like a month and a half. We keep having to cover stuff. We're going to try to take a couple weeks off. It has been a whirlwind, 3 months, Michael, man? It's been boom, 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 boom with Pulaski County Water, Pulaski County Sheriff's, Pulaski County PD, Pulaski County this. It has been a whirlwind. So we're going to try to take a couple weeks off. Anyway, we appreciate you guys. We appreciate everybody that makes Truth or Politics happen. And we will see you. And thank you, Dan and Barb. These are part of my killer bees and some of the people behind the scenes that I always talk about. We will see you next time on Truth or Politics. Thanks.